The journey had started as a simple plan. Nothing too adventurous, nothing too risky. He only wanted to visit a distant region that was known for its untouched landscapes and peaceful silence. For a long time, he had dreamed of experiencing a place where life moved slowly, far from the noise of the modern world. So when he finally got a short break from work, he packed his bags, filled his water containers, and set out on a trip that he imagined would be calm and predictable. But the world has its own way of surprising a person, and this journey would soon become the most unforgettable experience of his life. As he drove along the dusty road, the heat felt heavy against his skin. The sun above was strong, shining without mercy, and there was not a single cloud in the sky to soften its brightness. He stopped the vehicle near a wide-open area where he could rest for a while. The silence around him was almost complete. Only the sound of dry wind brushing across the ground could be heard. He took a deep breath and looked around, appreciating the beauty of nature. The distant mountains looked still, like they had been standing there for centuries, untouched by time. While taking a drink from his water bottle, he noticed something moving far away. At first, it looked like shadows, shifting slowly. But as they came closer, he realized it was a group of people. Their clothes were different, made of natural colors and simple materials. They walked together in a calm manner, but he could see from their faces that they were tired. When they reached closer, he realized they were members of a local tribe that lived deep in this region, people who rarely interacted with outsiders. At the center of the group was an older man. His posture was straight even though he looked exhausted. There was something powerful about the way he carried himself, something that showed strength, wisdom, and leadership. His eyes, though tired, were sharp and observant. The man was clearly the leader of the tribe. The narrator, who had only come for peaceful exploration, felt a slight nervousness. He had heard that some tribes preferred to stay isolated and did not welcome strangers easily. But he also knew that kindness was understood in every culture. Instead of stepping back or showing fear, he offered a small, polite smile. The tribe stopped a short distance away from him. Their leader looked directly at him, and for a moment, neither of them said a single word. It was as if both were silently trying to understand whether the other carried good intentions. The heat was intense, and he could see dry dust on their faces and clothes. It was clear that they had been traveling a long time under the harsh sun. He remembered the extra bottles of water he had stored in the vehicle. Without thinking twice, he opened the back door and took out a large container filled with clean, cool water. He held it gently and walked slowly toward them, making sure he moved in a respectful way so they would not feel alarmed. When he reached a few steps away from the tribe leader, he lifted the water container slightly, showing what he had brought. The leader looked surprised, almost as if he could not believe that a stranger was offering something so valuable without asking for anything in return. Water, in this part of the region, was precious. For people who lived close to nature and depended on natural sources, it meant life and survival. The narrator took another step forward and placed the container on a flat rock, inviting the leader to drink. The leader looked at the container again, then at the man standing before him. Slowly, with a calm and dignified movement, he accepted the water. His hands shook slightly, not out of weakness, but out of appreciation. He took a long drink, and the relief on his face was unmistakable. After the leader drank, he passed the container to the members of his tribe, who also took small, thankful sips. They did not speak much, but their quiet expressions told him everything. The simple act of giving water had touched them deeply. The leader stepped forward and placed his hand over his chest, a gesture of respect and gratitude within their culture. The narrator nodded, returning the gesture in the same gentle way. He did not know the tribe's language, but in that moment, no words were needed. Kindness was enough, and it reached them clearly. After resting for a few minutes, the tribe prepared to leave. The leader looked back at the narrator one more time, giving a slow nod that felt almost like a promise, though the narrator did not understand its meaning yet. The tribe walked away in the same calm and dignified manner as when they had approached, disappearing slowly behind the distant hills. When they were gone, he sat down near his vehicle and thought about what had just happened. he felt unexpectedly moved. Something about the leader's eyes, the tribe's grateful silence, and the simplicity of the moment made him feel connected to people he had never met before. He wondered about their lives, their traditions, their beliefs. Maybe this small meeting was just a passing moment for them, or maybe it meant something more. He did not know that in their culture, giving water to someone in need was considered a sacred gesture, a sign of deep respect and goodwill. He did not know that by offering water to the tribe leader himself, he had unknowingly honored the entire tribe. And he certainly did not know that this one simple action would soon change the direction of his journey in ways he could never have imagined. As the sun began to lower in the sky, he felt a strange sense of curiosity and peace. The desert around him looked different now, not empty, but full of hidden stories. He had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but he felt that this journey was no longer just about exploration. Something unexpected had begun, something meaningful, and he was silently becoming a part of it. He packed his things, closed the vehicle door, and prepared to continue his route. But every now and then, his mind returned to the face of the tribe leader and the quiet moment they had shared. A small act of kindness had created a connection between two completely different worlds, and he could not shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. That night, he slept peacefully, unaware that the tribe leader would return the next morning, bringing with him a decision that would completely change the course of his life. The next morning began in a quiet, peaceful way. The sky was still soft with early light, and the air felt cooler than usual. He stretched his arms, feeling rested after the long previous day. As he stepped out of his small tent, he expected to hear only the wind and maybe a few distant birds. But instead, he heard a strange, unfamiliar sound like soft footsteps, mixed with the faint rustle of movement. At first, he thought it might be some animals wandering nearby, but then the sound grew clearer, more organized, almost like a group of people approaching. He frowned slightly, confused. This place was far from towns or crowded areas. Who would be walking here so early? For a moment, he wondered if it could be travelers, or maybe workers from a distant settlement. But when he stepped outside fully and looked toward the open area in front of his camp, he froze in surprise. There, standing under the warm morning light, was the same tribe he had met the day before. The same group who had quietly accepted water from him. The same leader, with the strong, wise eyes. But this time, they were not tired or exhausted. They looked rested, alert, and somehow more prepared. The leader now wore a beautifully crafted piece of fabric around his shoulders, decorated with simple but meaningful designs. And unlike yesterday, they were not only walking, they had formed a respectful line, almost like they had come with purpose. He blinked, not sure if he was imagining things. Why would they return? Why so early? And why in such a formal way? He stood still, not wanting to make any sudden movements. The leader stepped forward, his expression calm but serious. Though the narrator didn't understand the tribe's language, the leader raised his hand in a gentle greeting, making it clear that their visit was friendly. The narrator slowly raised his hand in return, still unsure of what was happening. Then, one of the tribe members stepped forward carrying a handmade basket. Inside it were neatly arranged fruits, dried leaves, and a carved wooden piece. The narrator realized they had brought gifts. But why? He didn't feel like he had done anything special. Giving water to someone in need felt like the most natural thing to do. The leader moved closer, and when he reached a comfortable distance, he placed his hand on his chest again, the same gesture he had made yesterday. He spoke a few words in his native language. Though the narrator didn't understand the meaning, he could sense the sincerity in the man's voice. Another tribe member stepped forward, a younger man, and began speaking slowly in broken English. It was clear he knew only a little of the language, but he was trying his best to translate the leader's message. He explained that the tribe leader had come back because he wanted to express deep gratitude. According to their customs, kindness shown to the leader is considered kindness to the entire tribe. And giving water, especially without being asked, was a sign of great respect. The narrator listened quietly, feeling a wave of unexpected emotion. He never imagined that such a simple action could mean so much to people. To him, it was a natural instinct to help someone who looked tired and thirsty. But to them, it was something sacred. The younger tribe member continued translating, explaining that the leader wished to invite the narrator to their village. This invitation was not something ordinary. Outsiders were rarely welcomed inside. Their tribe lived in harmony with nature, far from modern influence, and they protected their traditions carefully. Inviting him meant they trusted him. It meant they saw him as a friend. The narrator felt both honored and nervous. He had never seen a tribal village before, and he did not know what to expect. But the warmth in the leader's eyes made him feel comfortable. He nodded slowly, accepting the invitation with respect. The tribe members smiled softly, and a gentle sense of relief filled the air. The leader stepped aside and motioned for him to follow. The narrator quickly gathered a few essentials from his camp water, a small bag, and his camera, not for taking pictures of people without permission, but in case he saw landscapes or natural beauty along the way. They began walking across the open land. The tribe moved with a smooth rhythm, as if they had done this journey many times before. The narrator followed close behind, observing the surroundings. The ground changed slowly from dry sand to firmer earth, and then to patches of green. He realized the tribe lived deeper inside this wilderness, where nature provided small but steady sources of life. As they walked, some tribe members spoke among themselves in their own language. Their voices were calm, the tone warm and familiar. Children ran lightly between the adults, laughing softly. The narrator felt like he was entering a different world, one where life was slower, simpler, and more connected to nature. After a long walk, they finally reached the village. It was more beautiful than he expected. The houses were made using natural materials, shaped with care. Each home had its own charm, some decorated with woven patterns, others with carvings that told stories of their past. The air smelled of fresh plants, warm earth, and something cooking over a gentle fire. The moment the villagers noticed the tribe leader returning with a guest, their faces lit up with curiosity and kindness. People stepped out of their homes, offering friendly smiles. Some waved softly. Others observed quietly but respectfully. No one seemed suspicious or unwelcoming. It was as if the leader's presence alone was enough to assure them that the visitor was someone good. They led him to the center of the village, where a large open space was surrounded by tall trees. In the middle, a fire burned softly, creating warmth. A few women placed baskets of food on the ground while others prepared fresh water using clay pots. As he sat down, the leader took a seat beside him. More tribe members gathered around, forming a circle. A young woman brought him a bowl of a traditional drink made from fruits found nearby. He took a careful sip. The taste was natural and sweet, unlike anything he had tried before. The leader then spoke again, and the same young man translated. The leader explained that in their culture, when someone shows unexpected kindness, the tribe honors them through hospitality. This gathering was their way of showing respect. The narrator nodded with gratitude. He felt deeply moved by their humility and warmth. He looked around, noticing how every person seemed connected, working together, sharing smiles, moving with unity. There was something peaceful about this place, something that made him feel safe. But just when he thought the day could not surprise him further, the leader paused and looked at him with an even deeper seriousness. With slow, meaningful words, he began speaking again. The young man translating hesitated as if searching for the right English words. Then he finally explained that what the leader wanted to offer was not ordinary. It was something rare, something that represented the highest honor their tribe could give. The narrator listened, unaware of how greatly this moment would affect his life. The leader spoke of a tradition, a way in which the tribe showed ultimate gratitude to a man of good heart. It was something that the narrator had never imagined. Something far beyond a simple thank you. The tribe watched quietly, the air thick with anticipation. The narrator sat still, confused but respectful, waiting to hear what the leader had decided. He had no idea that the next word spoken to him would change everything he thought he understood about this journey. The moment the leader began to speak, the entire village became quiet. People who were talking softly stopped mid-sentence. Children who were laughing slowed down and moved closer to their parents. Even the wind seemed to calm itself, as if it wanted to listen to what the leader was about to say. The narrator felt the attention around him shift. He sensed that something important was happening, something much deeper than he could have expected when he first arrived here. The young man who translated earlier sat beside the narrator again. His face looked thoughtful, almost nervous, as if he knew the meaning behind the leader's words carried weight. The leader continued speaking in a calm, steady tone, looking directly at the narrator with respect and sincerity. After a few moments, the young translator took a slow breath and began explaining. He said that the tribe leader had spent the previous night thinking deeply about the stranger who had shown kindness to him without hesitation. In their culture, a person who offered water in a time of need was seen as someone with a pure heart, and offering it to the tribe leader without any fear, demand, or expectation was considered one of the highest acts of respect. The narrator sat quietly, absorbing every word. He hadn't thought much of it at the time. To him, helping someone thirsty was simply human, but hearing how they interpreted his gesture made him realize how differently cultures understood values. What was ordinary to him was sacred to them. The translator continued. The leader wished to honor the narrator in a way that, according to their traditions, was considered the highest gift a tribe could give. It was not wealth, not land, not objects. It was something connected to trust, family, and lasting bonds. The narrator listened with growing curiosity. The tribe members around him looked calm but expectant, as if they already knew what was coming. Only he remained unaware of the meaning behind their expressions. Then the translator said something the narrator had not expected at all. The tribe leader wished to offer him a place in the family. Not as a visitor, not as a guest, but as someone respected, someone trusted deeply. The way the tribe showed this honor was through offering the hand of the leader's daughters to a man they believed had a noble heart. The narrator's eyes widened. He sat completely still, not sure if he had heard correctly. Marriage was not a small thing, especially not across cultures, languages, and ways of life. He did not know what to say. He waited, hoping the translator would explain further. The young man did. He said that in their culture, this offer was not a demand, nor was it something forced. It was a symbol of honor, something the tribe offered only to people they believed deserved great respect. If a man refused the offer, it brought no shame or anger. It simply meant he chose a different path, and the tribe would still treat him as a valued friend. The narrator felt some relief hearing that. But he was still shocked. He looked at the tribe leader, whose eyes carried both seriousness and kindness. Then the leader motioned with his hand. Two young women stepped forward from the crowd. The narrator recognized them. They were the same women he had briefly seen earlier in the village. Standing close now, they looked graceful and calm. Their clothes were traditional, decorated with beautiful patterns. They carried themselves with quiet confidence, and their eyes showed gentle curiosity. The translator explained that these were the leader's daughters. They had been raised with strong values, taught to respect nature and people, and had grown up learning the traditions of their tribe. The leader wished to honor the narrator by offering a bond with his family through them. The narrator felt overwhelmed, not because of the offer itself, but because of the sincerity behind it. He had never imagined that giving water to a tired traveler would lead to such a moment, something so deeply rooted in a completely different culture. The daughters looked at him with soft smiles. Their expressions didn't show pressure or expectation. Instead, they seemed to be offering a gesture of respect, just like their father had. They did not approach him with discomfort or shyness. They stood with dignity, waiting for his response. The narrator's heart beat faster. He appreciated their kindness, but his mind was racing. He respected the culture deeply, but he also knew that his own life was far away from his routines, his work, his responsibilities, and everything familiar. He wondered if he could ever truly be part of this world, where traditions were strong, and life followed rules he had never known. The leader spoke again. His voice was calm, not demanding. He explained, through the translator, that offering this connection was their way of showing trust. They believed that the narrator's heart was good enough to be part of their family. The leader said he understood that the outside world worked differently, and he did not expect the narrator to accept quickly or without thought. The narrator appreciated the kindness and the patience in those words. He took a slow breath and looked around. Everywhere he saw sincerity. No one looked upset or rushed. Everyone simply waited with respect, giving him space to think. He finally opened his mouth to speak. Though he was emotional, his voice was steady. He thanked the tribe for their kindness, saying that he felt honored beyond words. He explained that he had never expected such respect, and he understood the importance of the offer. He also shared that he came from a very different world, with different traditions and expectations. Making such a decision required deep thought, not only for him but for the daughters as well. The translator conveyed his words carefully, and the tribe listened with attention. The leader nodded slowly, showing that he understood his feelings. The daughters also nodded politely, respecting his hesitation. After the explanation, the leader invited the narrator to rest and spend time in the village without worry. He said the offer was simply a gesture of honor, and not a burden. The narrator felt a wave of relief mixed with gratitude. He realized that this tribe did not measure people by wealth or background. They measured them by kindness and heart. The rest of the day passed gently. The villagers showed him around, explaining how they gathered food, how they built their homes, and how they honored their elders. Children followed him with excitement, handing him small fruits or flowers. Elderly women smiled warmly at him, touching his arm lightly as a sign of goodwill. Throughout the day, he observed the tribe's life. They lived simply, but their hearts were full. Their days were hard, but their spirits were strong. He began to understand why the leader's daughters carried themselves with such confidence and grace. They came from a world where respect, loyalty, and kindness were the most important values. In the evening, the narrator sat alone for a while, thinking deeply. He did not want to hurt the tribe by refusing their offer too quickly, but he also knew he could not accept something so great without understanding its meaning or being fully prepared for the responsibilities it carried. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He respected the tribe, he respected their leader, and he respected their daughters. But he also respected the life he had come from, a life that he might not be ready to abandon. As night settled over the village, he knew one thing clearly. Whatever decision he made the next day had to come from honesty, kindness, and respect. He went to sleep with a thoughtful heart, unaware that the next day would bring a moment of understanding that would shape the rest of his journey. The next morning arrived with a soft golden light spreading across the village. Birds sang their early songs, and a gentle breeze moved through the tall trees. The narrator opened his eyes slowly, feeling the calmness of the place settle inside him. But along with the calmness, there was also a quiet weight resting on his chest. Today, he had to give his answer. Today, he had to speak honestly to the tribe leader about something that touched not only his life, but also the lives of the leader's daughters and the entire tribe. He stepped outside the small resting hut they had given him for the night. The village was already awake. Women prepared food, men discussed the tasks for the day, and children ran around with pure joy, playing simple games with sticks and stones. The narrator smiled softly at the sight. This village, with its peaceful rhythm and warm people, had become special to him in just a short time. The tribe leader stood near the central fire, speaking quietly to some elders. When he noticed the narrator, he nodded gently, inviting him to sit. The narrator walked toward him slowly, feeling respect for the man who had shown him nothing but kindness from the moment they met. They sat together near the fire. The young translator joined them a few seconds later, ready to help bridge the gap between two different languages and two different worlds. The leader looked at the narrator with calm eyes, waiting patiently. He was not a man who rushed others. He believed in giving space and time for the heart to speak honestly, and the narrator appreciated that deeply. After a moment of silence, the narrator finally spoke. His voice was soft but steady. He began by thanking the leader again for the trust, the hospitality, and the immense respect he had shown. He said he had never experienced such warmth from strangers before. He told the leader that the village had made him feel safe and welcomed in a way he could not easily explain. The translator repeated his words in the tribe's language. The leader listened without interrupting, his expression gentle. The narrator continued. He explained that he came from a completely different world, one with different customs, responsibilities, and expectations. He shared that his life back home was full of commitments he could not easily leave. He said that although he admired the tribe, their traditions, and their values deeply, he did not want to accept any offer that he could not fully honor with a true and steady heart. He paused and took a breath. This was the hardest part. He said that he respected the leader's daughters greatly. They were kind, strong, and graceful, but accepting such an important role in their lives without fully understanding their world, their language, and their customs would not be fair to them. He believed that a bond should not be formed with confusion or hesitation, but with clarity and certainty. When the translator spoke these words, the tribe leader listened carefully. He showed no disappointment, no anger, no frustration. Instead, he looked at the narrator with the same respect as before. After the translation finished, the leader placed his hand over his chest, a gesture the narrator now understood as a sign of acceptance and understanding. The leader spoke a few words, and the translator gently explained that the leader did not feel hurt. He appreciated the narrator's honesty. In their culture, truth spoken with kindness was valued even more than agreement. The leader said that forcing someone into a decision was never their way. What mattered most was the sincerity of the heart. Hearing this, the narrator felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had feared that his refusal might create disappointment or misunderstandings. But instead, all he found was understanding and grace. The leader then made a sign, and the two daughters stepped forward again. Their faces were calm and kind. One of them spoke quietly in their own language, and the translator explained that they respected his choice and felt no sadness. They believed that every person had a path chosen for them, and no one should step onto a path where they did not feel at home. The narrator nodded, feeling grateful for their maturity and warmth. He admired them even more now, not for beauty or grace, but for the strength in their hearts. The leader then stood up and motioned for the narrator to follow him. They walked a short distance away from the village center, toward a quiet place, shaded by tall trees. The rest of the tribe gave them space, understanding that this was an important moment. Under the shade, the leader held a small cloth bundle in his hands. He opened it slowly, revealing a beautifully carved wooden symbol. It looked like two rivers with different paths flowing separately but touching at one point. The carving was smooth and carefully crafted, clearly made with love and tradition. The leader placed the carving gently in the narrator's hands. The translator explained that this was a symbol of friendship in their tribe. It meant, "Our paths were different, but they touched for a reason." It was a gift given only to those the tribe considered true friends, people who had shown goodness of heart. For a moment, the narrator felt his throat tighten. He had not expected such a meaningful gesture. He held the carving carefully, almost afraid of dropping it. It felt like a piece of the tribe's spirit was being entrusted to him. He placed his hand over his chest, repeating the gesture he had learned from them. The leader smiled, a warm smile that reached his eyes. They walked back to the village together slowly. Several villagers came to say their farewells. Children waved excitedly, some handing him small handmade items. Women gave him small baskets with dried fruits for his journey. The elderly touched his arm softly, blessing him in their own gentle way. Finally, it was time to leave. The narrator looked around at the village one last time. Every corner held a memory, a smile, a gesture, a moment of kindness. He realized that even though he couldn't stay, this place would remain in his heart forever. He thanked the tribe leader again. The leader nodded, saying a few final words through the translator. He said that the village would always remember the man who offered water with a pure heart. And if life ever brought him back to this land, he would always be welcomed like family. With that, the narrator turned toward the open land and began walking. The tribe watched him go, not with sadness, but with quiet respect. As he moved farther away, the village slowly blended into the colors of nature. While walking back toward his own world, he felt different. Something inside him had changed. He realized that kindness, even in the smallest form, could create connections stronger than distance, language, or culture. He learned that hearts understood each other even when words could not. The wooden carving felt warm in his hand. It was a reminder that he had touched the lives of people he never expected to meet, and they had touched his in return. When he finally reached his vehicle and looked back one last time, he smiled softly. He knew this chapter of his life would stay with him forever, not because of the surprising offer, but because of what he learned about respect, understanding, and the beauty of human connection. The journey he thought would be simple had turned into something unforgettable. And all of it had happened because on one hot afternoon, he gave water to a tired traveler, never knowing that the act would open the door to a world he had never imagined.